Good morning. Thank you for coming. My name is Acting Staff Sergeant Jared Bueller with the EPS Homicide Section. On June 12, 2023, at approximately 6:30 p.m., Edmonton Police Service Southwest Division patrol members responded to a firearms complaint near Allard Boulevard and Arthur's Crescent in southwest Edmonton. Osama Ali, age 21, was found deceased on scene. The investigation was assumed by the Edmonton Police Service Homicide Section. Autopsy conducted on June 14, 2023 confirmed the cause of Ali's death to be multiple gunshot injuries. The manner of death is homicide. On Monday, September 11, 2023, an arrest warrant, now Canada-wide, was issued for Joseph Royal Chalala, age 22, for the second-degree murder of Osama Ali. In addition to these matters, the second-degree murder warrant was issued for Joseph Royal Chalala, if I misstated that, in relation to Osama Ali's murder. In addition to these matters, Joseph Chalala is currently wanted in relation to the murder of Christian Navos in Calgary, Alberta in July 2020. Chalala was convicted in Navos' murder on January the 17th, 2023. Joseph Chalala's whereabouts are currently unknown. The Edmonton Police Service is appealing to the media and the public for assistance in locating Chalala. Joseph Chalala should be considered armed and dangerous and should not be approached under any circumstance. Chalala is known to have links to both Calgary and Edmonton, Alberta, and to Ottawa, Ontario, but may be residing anywhere in Canada. Nor can it be excluded that Chalala may have fled abroad. In consideration of this information and the risk posed to public safety, the Edmonton Police Service is requesting media assistance in the widest possible media distribution of this information. Chalala is approximately 5 foot 5 inches tall, has a heavy build, brown hair, and green eyes. To assist in identification, video documenting Chalala's appearance, stature, and gait on June 12, 2023, along with additional still photographs, have been provided for distribution. And the video is to my left on the screen here. Chalala is the male dressed in black, dark blue with a hat, the New York Yankees hat. And again, this video was recorded on June the 12th, 2023, the same date as Osama Ali's murder. As a matter of public interest and background, Christian Navos was murdered on July 14th, 2020 in Calgary, Alberta. Joseph Chalala was later charged jointly with 2 other males in Navos' murder. As has been previously reported in Calgary media, Chalala was released on bail on April 23rd, 2021 on conditions and a $100,000 surety. On January 17th, 2023, Chalala pled guilty to the Navos murder with sentencing scheduled for March 16th, 2023. Chalala was allowed to remain on bail, subject to monitoring with a GPS-equipped ankle bracelet. As has been previously reported, on the date of his sentencing, Chalala failed to appear and absconded after removing his ankle bracelet. Anyone with information as to Chalala's whereabouts is asked to contact police in their jurisdiction, the Edmonton Police Service, or Crime Stoppers. Any information with respect to Chalala's whereabouts or current associations is potentially important in apprehending this convicted offender. I'll take any questions.
Hi there, Johnny Wakefield with the Journal. Are you able to clarify anything about this video? What was he doing at a retirement home? Do we have any sense of why he was there the day of this killing?
I'm not going to comment specifically on what was occurring at the facility. It's video that we've collected as part of our investigation. It's not directly relevant to the homicide that occurred later that date, but it is some of the best video we have documenting his appearance, specifically his stature, the way he walks.
And this was taken before the shooting?
A couple of hours prior, yes.
Okay.
Hi, Carly Robinson with City News. I'm wondering if I missed this, but the connection between the suspect and the victim, was it targeted? Did they know each other? What can you say about that relationship?
Ali was known to Chalala. They were associates. The nature of that association is still subject to our investigation, but we're confident that they knew one another.
Is this the only suspect or potential suspect in this case, or does the investigation include others?
There's other people who have come up in the broader investigation around Chalala's life and activity, but he is the only. He is solely responsible for the shooting itself.
Sarah Ryan, Global News. Can you talk to us about the location of the shooting? Was that the home of Ali? Like, how is that location relevant, if at all?
The location is not particularly relevant other than the fact that the shooting occurred there. There's no close links to any of the people known to the investigation to that specific area, other than to say that it seemed that they were operating on the south side at that time.
When you say operating?
Moving, going about their day, whatever their business was at that time.
Sure. EPS has spoken a lot recently about bail, obviously bail reform, someone who pled guilty to murder being out on bail and then coming here to commit another murder. Can you talk to that?
Yeah, and I'll stress that obviously Mr. Chalala pled guilty in relation to the Navos homicide. He's, of course, deserves the presumption of innocence in the Ali investigation. That's why we're here, to attempt to put him before the courts on that. I can say that it is extremely unusual in my experience for someone who's already been convicted of murder to be released pre-sentencing. I can't think of very many examples, if any at all, in my own experience of that occurring. So it's a bit of a different twist on the typical discussion we've been having about bail. Certainly the implication of our charge is that a convicted murderer committed another murder while on bail. And I think it's certainly a matter of concern for us. I'll let others debate the meaning of that in broader context.
Just to clarify, so he did plead guilty to murder in the Calgary homicide?
That's correct.
Second degree?
I believe it was second degree. I'm not 100%. Excuse me, I've been corrected. Yeah, he pled guilty to manslaughter.
Okay.
I believe the charge was likely to be second degree murder.
Okay.
But yes, he entered a guilty plea. So he was convicted of that offense and released subsequent to that conviction pending a sentencing hearing. Normally, once convicted, someone would be remanded, even if they were on a previous bail, and held in a remand facility pending the sentencing.
And are you able to tell us anything about Mr. Ali? Does he have family here? Do you know anything about what he did for work?
Yeah, he does have family at Edmonton. We met with them earlier this week to let them know that this would be occurring. Out of respect for the family and for the deceased, I'm not going to speak to any degree about his personal circumstance at the time of his murder.
Were they comfortable sharing a photo or anything? Do we have a photo of him? Or?
I'm not sure. We'd have to follow up with you on that.
Okay.
Rodnald Donner from City TV. There's been a lot of talk, obviously, about bail conditions and people getting out, and we had the press conference here last week about some changes maybe to the way that's being dealt with. You don't seem happy with the fact that he was out on bail for this. Is there something that needs to change in that area? Have you had answers to why he was allowed to be out on bail in the conditions that he had going with him?
I don't take any position, nor does the Edmonton Police Service likely on the decision to put him on bail. You know, I've spoke to the implication if this turns out to be the case and he's convicted in Mr. Ali's murder, you know, we can examine that at that time. But from a theoretical perspective, it's impossible to commit another murder if the killer is in jail. So, you know, the obvious implication is that that may be what occurred here. You know, so it's obviously troubling to us as a police service. Not, you know, a life was lost, son, you know, brother was lost to his family, you know, and the time that we have to take away to investigate another murder is time that we can't spend investigating an already heavy caseload. So that it's certainly disappointing if this turns out to be the case. Yeah. Again, I don't have access to the. We've consulted with Calgary Police. We've consulted with the Calgary Crown. Based on what I've read in previous media reports, the submissions around Mr. Chalala's bail have been are subject to a publication ban, so we don't have the facts that were presented to the court in that regard. So I won't pass judgment on that at this point.
While we have you here, could you talk a little bit more about that heavy caseload, the number of homicide investigations and confirmed homicides that Edmonton police have had to deal with, and the number that are like this one that deal with shootings?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned this in previous availabilities, but you know, we're trending towards an average of about 40 homicides a year in Edmonton. And that doesn't even take into account the death investigations that we're involved in that haven't been officially deemed a homicide. So my rough math at this point is that you can, you know, add 2/3 to the number of confirmed homicides. That's the number of files that are essentially being investigated as homicides or suspicious deaths in our office. I've now been in the office for 6 years, and the workload is unprecedented. So I mean, I think the chief has spoke to, you know, the volume of crime generally in that city, but one of the, you know, clearly one of the more significant drivers of our workload as a police service is, you know, homicides. And that doesn't even account for the near homicides, the attempted murders that are happening in the city that aren't even coming to our office now because of the caseload that we have. And I don't think it can be stressed enough. And shout out to the medical professionals in Edmonton. If this was 1980, our numbers could easily be double what they are today. The work they do in the trauma rooms in Edmonton is nothing short of miraculous. So that's really keeping the lid on things, to be quite honest. But we're feeling the strain.
So when Chalala skipped out on bail, was he on EPS radar, or was it just Calgary, or?
I believe he had a very modest profile in Edmonton. Prior to the Ali investigation, he wasn't someone that crossed my radar.
Can you tell us, was Ali known to police?
Yes.
And just very broadly, are you able to speak to, were there any gang connections here or?
This murder
Exactly.
occurred within a context of organized crime.
Sorry, just
Yeah, nope.
Just on the topic of the attempted murders not being in, is this new? When did that start, that attempted murders aren't being investigated by the homicide unit?
Oh, that's not a recent thing. I mean, I think technically an attempted murder could fall within our mandate. As a matter of practice, we don't typically take attempted murders. We can, depending on the circumstances, but typically we limit ours to files where a death has occurred. But I just bring that up to point out that there are many, we've spoken, or others have spoken about the number of shootings in Edmonton. And from my perspective, any shooting could be effectively categorized as an attempted murder. You don't fire a gun at somebody, you know, without the knowledge that you could take a life. So, you know, just in the past week, for example, actors that are of interest to our section have been the subject of shooting investigations where nobody was killed, but those are simply near misses. You know, there are ongoing conflicts in the city, which I've spoken of previously, that are unfolding as we speak, and it's a challenging thing for a police service to take on all of those dynamics, you know, in the environment that we're working in right now at Edmonton, where resources are tapped across the board. It's holes in a dike scenario.
Sorry, just what's the exact number of homicides and how many were shooting?
Good question. I did print out some stats. I think at the beginning of this week, we were at 27. I think you'll see that number tick up one based on the autopsy that just happened yesterday. I believe that we've now gone from 16 at week start to 17 firearms-related homicides. So that's rough. Well, it's over half of our homicides are now firearms-related. So it just speaks to the volume of firearms that are on the street right now. I may have mentioned this previously, but you know, it is a different landscape in Edmonton and in Canada today than it was in 2000 when I started policing. Finding a gun on the street was an extremely rare occurrence, even 15 years ago. Today, our members are dealing with guns all the time. They're dealing with shootings on a semi-daily basis. It's a different world than it was a very short time ago.
Sorry, we'll just ask your question and we'll wrap it up there after.
Can you just talk to, when I was speaking to residents in the area where this happened, especially seeing as you're saying the area wasn't particularly relevant, some of them were traumatized. I mean, crying the moment they opened the door. Obviously traumatizing for Ali's family. Can you just talk about the kind of wider reaching impact of a death like this in a community?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen a lot of unfortunately, a lot of examples of that in the recent past. I mean, the Chinatown event traumatized that entire community. Just this spring, I'm forgetting the school, but the young mother and the child that were brutally killed there. I had the opportunity to attend the wake after that, the community wake after that, those murders, and it has a deep impact on people's perception of their own safety and their own community. That could have been anyone's child or any mother or any father for that matter. You know, so it's difficult to know how people do feel safe in their community after that. I spoke with you about the Hundabatwara murder on the LRT just less than, well, just in July, 2 months ago. And, you know, I think that's caused an impact on people's perception of public safety in and around transit centers. So, you know, and the homicide we're speaking of occurred in a residential area. So it's impacting all areas of our city right now. It seems like, you know, I'm here talking to you far too frequently about the exact same thing. And I know that, you know, the chief spoke to it earlier this week that, you know, we have to take a different approach because what has been done in the past couple of years is clearly not working. And I think that's the whole idea behind what they spoke about earlier in the week was to, you know, to try to take back the community and at least give people the perception that something is being done.
Can I just ask a real quick one?
Go ahead.
You said that 16 of the murders have involved guns, about 50%. And you said-
17 as of yesterday.
Okay, but that's a dramatic increase, I think you said. Is there a benchmark that you can give us from, you know, 10 years back or something like that to talk about the prevalence of guns?
I couldn't give you anything statistically off the top of my head. We probably could if we dug down into the stats. You know, anecdotally, or at least my perception of the situation is that it's becoming a much greater problem. It's occurring with much more frequency, the gunplay on the streets. So unfortunately, I don't have the stats at hand. Thanks, everybody.